Hello, friends, and welcome to Binge O'Clock, the podcast where we watch something and then we talk about it. I'm Joy Seldin. I've seen almost everything.
I'm Danielle Ngo, and I've seen almost nothing.
And I'm Ethan Quinsey, and that's about all I know for this episode. Is my name. Look, it's been a long day. I know some things about these episodes. I've seen them before.
Well, they're very important. I feel like all three of these episodes are important episodes for one reason or another.
Yeah, exactly. I was going to say, like, episode 13 feels very important. 50% of episode 14 is important.
And then
but we're getting ahead of ourselves, right?
But yes, we are going to be talking about Babylon 5 Seasons 1, episodes 13, 14, and 15. And I don't know, I really enjoyed these episodes. There are things I have questions about and comments, which we'll get to. But yeah, let's start with episode 13, Signs and Portents.
And the overview from The Lurker's Guide to Babylon 5 says, a sharp increase in raider activity has the station on the defensive. Londo obtains a priceless Centauri artifact. A mysterious stranger visits the station's alien ambassadors.
This is like the second or third or fourth or fifth time there's been a priceless alien artifact as like a MacGuffin.
And they have all looked like my arts and crafts projects from 5th grade.
I was going to say, I love that it's basically covered in just like stick-on rhinestones. Yes. It's just stick-on rhinestones, and it's fake gold, and it's beautiful.
It's adorable. We love it.
I have seen better props in a high school production of Camelot.
I do think there's always a funny thing where it's like, we don't have enough in the budget for insert Deus Ex whatever here. And I love the idea that they were like, we're just going to throw together whatever we have extra.
We're just going to hop on down to the dollar store and make this work.
Exactly. It is a dollar store, eye of the eye. Just
but it's hard because it's a TV show versus a stage production, right? So you're looking at it when you're 3 feet away from it versus when you're, I don't know how many feet away.
Yeah, when you're up in the balcony, you can't tell that it's cardboard,
A minimum of 50. A minimum of 50 feet away at all times.
You can't tell it's gold foil and cardboard.
Right?
This is unequivocally gold foil and cardboard. This
Absolutely.
It's just this like concentric, I don't know what the name of that geometric object is, but it's like concentric circles, concentric rings, and then you sort of flip them out and it looks like
it's like a puzzle box of jewels.
Yes.
That's a really good way to describe it.
And 100% a puzzle box of jewels.
And it's an ancient artifact that belonged to this one Centauri family that used to rule the Empire, and they really want it back because they think that if they have it, they can usurp the current emperor. And Londo is like, well, I'm glad to help you get this because I know you need to bring it back to the current emperor, but I am in no way supporting your coup. Go away.
I love Londo in his political house. Like when he's on his political throne, he is really good and really interesting to watch.
Yes. That's an aspect of this episode I enjoyed, and it reminded me of something we forgot to talk about during the last podcast episode when, now my memory is failing me, all 3 ambassadors are asked for help by the couple in Believers.
Yes.
And we got like all 3 ambassadors' different perspectives and opinions sort of on that entire situation. And I feel like this was a really nice mirror for that episode.
Yeah, no, we get something similar here with this random stranger who we think may or may not, like, he appears human, but we don't really know that. His credentials are out of date. And he just kind of wanders from ambassador to ambassador and is just like, I just want to know what you want. And at some point comes across Kosh, who, if I'm not mistaken, tells him, like, these people are not for you or something.
They are not for you.
And there's a moment where you're like, you get it a little bit with Delenn, because Delenn is like clocking something that we can't see is wrong with this person. And then you really get it with Kosh, where Kosh is just like, I know what you are. You need to go.
Get away. I mean, Kosh continuing to just win at everything, I suppose.
Miss-
I don't know.
Mr. Morden. Mr. Morden.
Ethan, I need to know. I know this is the mildest of spoilers, but this does come back, right? Like
the random guy who disappears.
Does this just go away, or is this relevant?
This is the most relevant thing that's happened yet.
Yay!
Okay, great, fantastic.
Love that.
I just if
Thank
this
goodness.
random wish-granting mysterious stranger appeared and then never came back again, I'm not really sure what I would do.
I mean,
with
the
myself.
the magical wish-granting man of mystery who mysteriously causes a giant, terrifying ship made of shifting shadows to destroy the giant raider vessel and the the double-crossing Centauri nobleman, and thereby getting the eye back for Londo, who would have had to go back to Centauri Prime in disgrace for having lost this precious item. So it's yes, he grants wishes. He's like the genie, except a bunch of people got killed.
Well, and also has an agenda, right? He's not just granting everyone's wish. He's listening to what you want and then deciding if it's worth it.
And I want you to just compare what Jakar said he wanted versus what Londo said he wanted. So what did Jakar want?
Yeah. To be fair, I was more laughing at how he was like, "What do you mean? What do I want?
You are very
What do I want for
irritating.
dinner?"
Go away. Yes, but
that's. I mean, I loved both of their initial reactions to this wish granting. I mean, the fact that the wish granting genie, I'm just gonna have to call them that because I don't even know how else to refer to them. Morden, literally, stepped into the elevator and trapped Londo with him is one of my favorite things.
Just this chipper, beatific smile. It's
yeah.
Okay,
and I love that
Jakar...
Londo first asks him, "What can I do for you? What do you want?" And he's like, "That's just what I was going to ask you."
Okay, so Jakar wants to see the Centauri wiped out, and Londo wants to see the Centauri take their rightful place.
So I want you to think about those in terms of scale. Jakar wants, and he says, as long as his people are safe, everything else he doesn't really care about. Londo specifically says, everything that we had and lost, I want it all back and more. So it's a question of scale. It's reclamation and revenge versus ultimate conquest. So it's also a question of whoever Morden represents, they are looking for someone who will be easy to manipulate because their desires are greater.
Right.
And I feel like I'm not giving a lot away because we already know Londo is starting down a path here.
Yes.
No, absolutely. Absolutely.
And we already know that Londo is the one who received the gift. I also appreciated the detail that the box that the eye is in, when Londo receives it at the end of the episode, is singed. So it's clear that the explosion happens and somehow this box was retrieved from space, which seems
concerning.
Challenging.
both challenging and concerning. These are both very valid.
Yeah. Absolutely. I just want to make sure we touch on a couple other things too. I mean, poor Delenn. Delenn was having such a bad day. I am very curious about that forehead light up though. Is that well, maybe this is spoilers or not, but is that like an implant or is that like a species specific
we never find out.
Oh, we never find out.
No, Delenn has some little flourishes in the first season that kind of get dropped. And the fact that they get dropped is not necessarily a problem because there's a reason why they would be. Which I'm not going to elaborate. Which I am not going to elaborate on.
I feel like I've seen pictures and spoiled it for myself, but that's fine. The
but
The,
it's never the thing that it's never mentioned. It never comes up again. It's never explained again. I mean, you can make sort of educated inferences, but there's nothing really confirmed within the text of the show. There's nothing.
sure.
All we know is that she sort of has insight into events and people.
Because we've seen the little triangle thing on her forehead before, like the episode what was it, And the Sky Full of Stars, when Sinclair had his mind rummaged through by random British man. And at the end of the episode, after he's left Lynn's quarters, when she's been questioning him, literally out of her bedroom comes, but that's because it's the only other room in her apartment. Comes this Minbari in a gray cloak, and he's got the thing on his forehead, and so does she, and it's I think we know she's a member of the Grey Council. I think it has something to do with that,
Right.
But it's never actually confirmed.
It's reminiscent for me of in Star Trek Discovery, we get to see an alien species who has like an actual fear response that you physically get to see on their person. So it just kind of reminded me of that. And I was like, oh, wouldn't that be cool if it was like part of their biology? But unfortunately, I choose to believe it's part of their biology.
By all means, we never...
It's interesting because it could be either, right? Like it could be like implant, like a religiosity implant.
It could absolutely be
side.
anything you want. I don't think we ever see it again in anybody.
It's unfortunate.
Wow.
I love the water cooler talk of Lando and Jakar at the elevator.
The button pushing.
Where they're just basically bicker.
Rose, she called me after she watched that episode. My wife called me after she watched that episode, and she said the thing with the elevator buttons where Lando pressed it and then Jakar pressed it, and they're like, well, I pressed it first. Well, I pressed it again. She's like, that's my kids.
My favorite thing about that was you have this human in the middle who's obviously trying to stay out of it. And it felt like a very, this feels like a metaphor for the humans on this space station.
You caught that. Yes, it is absolutely how, yes.
Meanwhile, the human is like, excuse me, and just runs right into the lift that leaves the two of them
They
behind.
look at each other and go in unison, now look what you made me do. I expected one of them to break into, Oliver Hardy. Well, that's another fine mess.
I know.
Speaking of Garibaldi and his dated references.
Except they're both Ollie. They are both Ollie is the problem. They need a Hardy to balance them out.
No, they need a Laurel.
A Laurel to balance them out.
That's linear.
Do we ever see what the Raiders look like?
The Raiders are human. The guy that Lord...
The people that were talking to the Centauri at the end of the episode.
Yeah, the guys who were talking to Lord
those are
Lord
the Raiders.
Kiro. Yeah, those are the Raiders. They're human. They're human space pirates. They're not interesting.
I had really bad white guy blindness in this episode.
They all look alike.
I was having a lot of trouble telling the difference between the Wish Genie and the bad guys who were plotting.
Oh, fair.
Wish Genie had a suit on. That's the only difference.
Yes.
And also,
Wish Genie had a suit
the
on.
Raider leader, I don't know if it's... I don't think it was too...
Well, because he was working with Kiro then, right?
But
okay.
This was something I noticed. I've noticed this before, and I always thought because I prior to this rewatch, I've always watched them on DVD, and so I thought this will get fixed when I've seen it in digital, because now they've remastered it. It's in high def now. No, it's still there. So I think it's just he's the leader of the Raiders, who is, or at least the guy working with Lord Kiro, sounds like he's dubbed. He has a very weird cadence to his voice.
He has bad ADR. Which I don't even know if it's actually ADR, if his mic was just...
It was just very... I don't know how to describe it. It was just very sort of over-mouthed. But it's not like... It didn't not match his lips, but the force and diction of the words did not match the shape of his lips, is the best way that I can describe it.
Yeah, no, it's entirely possible that they just had really bad audio the day that he was filming, a lot of times they'll bring the actors in to do voiceover because, you know, things happen on set and, you know, a little bit inside baseball. But like every now and then there's a show or something that I like hear it more than the other episodes. It like completely takes me out of the episode. I'm just like, oh, we couldn't have mixed that just a little bit better. You know?
And he had such a bland, like you said, as you say, white guy blindness. He had such a bland face, and his hair was so slicked back. And I just kept looking at him going, are you a marionette? Are you a puppet? Have you been digitally inserted into this episode? In 94?
He might be. I did also write down, I was like, Kira doesn't have an accent, and that makes it even funnier because all I can think about is it's the actor's name is Doyle, who plays Londo, right?
Peter Jurasik.
Peter Jurasik. All I can think of is Jurasik just making this, like, as you described him, Dracula vampire-esque, like, accent, and then forcing no one else to do it. He's just like, this is my choice. You guys do whatever you want.
His space Romanian accent. So we find out, as we meet more of the Centauri nobility, you learn that Londo has what's considered a very old-fashioned accent. It's like the Centauri equivalent of the mid-Atlantic dialect from old Hollywood movies, or RP in Britain. It's very old-fashioned. It's very highfalutin. He is, as he calls himself, he is a washed-up old Republican, which means something very different in the Centauri government.
Yeah.
So Lord Kiro
absolutely
has no accent and sounds aggressively American. I would just like to point shout out to the actor Garrett Graham, who, for my cult movie fans, played Beef in The Phantom of the Paradise, aka the guy who gets murdered in a shower with a plunger.
I love that. I love everything about that. Graham is has been a staple. Anybody who watches this episode probably be familiar with his face. We'll get to some of the guest stars in some of the other episodes that I was like, oh my God, I didn't expect to see you here. And the only other thing I think I wanted to touch on this episode was that the commander actually finally confides in somebody, and it's Garibaldi.
They have...
I'm okay with that. Like, look, Garibaldi is a cop through and through, but I'm glad he confided in someone.
Yes, I am glad he confided in someone. It's more just, like, as the series progresses, you spend so much time on their little buddy dynamic. And it's like the most chemistry-free bromance that I've ever seen.
You know, I'm so glad that you're pointing that out because I've been picking up on that too. Like, as an example, Sinclair and Delenn. Every time Sinclair and Delenn are on screen, I'm like, these two are friends. These two have a connection. And there's something between them that just works. Garibaldi doesn't have that with Sinclair. He's got a little bit with Ivanova. But, like, I don't know. No.
Ivanova,
yes, sorry. Always, it will take me forever to get that
The
right.
problem is
Correct.
you're pronouncing it the way it should be pronounced, which is...
That's
yes.
the problem.
The show pronounces it incorrectly.
Just wait. Just wait until we get to the next episode.
And the terrible thing is, she's my favorite character in this show, and I can't get her name
Susan.
right. I'm like,
she is Susan.
I know.
I keep imagining Ivanhoe, and somehow I get there. Ivanhoe, Ivanova. Like,
Ivanova.
I literally had to create a word puzzle for myself to remember how to pronounce her name. Because I was like, otherwise, I'm not going to remember either. And we can't both be like this, Danielle.
Yes, we can, because Ethan's here.
That's true.
Yes,
That's
Ethan
true.
I am
help us.
your...
He's going to
your
fix it.
series pedant for this season.
Wait, Joy, thoughts on the Centauri who is a seer?
Oh, I really enjoyed her. I thought she was a lot of fun. You know, it's like she sees things happen, and we all think she's a little off, but you know, sometimes her stuff comes true. I don't know. And I just think it's very funny that it was like, this is my aunt, and like, Wasn't it like the day I was born? She said I was going to die by shadow.
She's, at my first
something.
birthday party, she said I would be killed by a shadow. And then he was.
Just a barrel of laughs. Well, and then he was several years
Well,
later.
yes, but that's prophecy.
You know what I mean? But I just love that it's like, and then I travel. This is my favorite aunt. She has these weird prophecies. Get this, I'm going to die by shadow.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It was like a weird conversation piece. I personally found her to be really enjoyable. I think she committed really hard. And I was like, thank you for understanding the character you had.
She understood the assignment. And I will just say that her vision of Babylon 5 being destroyed is accurate.
Oh, yeah. No, I thought so. I was like, oh, yeah. Okay. So she's going to be like a real seer.
They're all real seers. The Centauri do have basically the gift of prophecy.
Well, we talked with their dreams, right? Are prophetic?
Yes. But that's not... Most Centauri have the occasional prophetic dream. And according to Londo, every Centauri sees in a dream how, sometimes when, they're going to die. And actual seers are more rare. And if I remember correctly, they're always women. It's very Oracle of Delphi.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Uh-huh. That's so annoying because women have no power in their culture.
Literally
I wish
not.
I could
Yeah,
like
no, I don't
that.
like it. It's just, it's a fact.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think if there was anything else. Oh, I thought there was something else.
I mean, those are sort of the main plot lines, I think, in this episode.
Yeah, I think that was
a lot happens, right?
I was hunting for trivia.
happens.
I thought I missed a bit that I had wanted to say.
I did also definitely write down that got complicated towards the end.
Well, that escalated quickly.
And just in terms of escalating, I do think they did a good job of slowly revving up stuff in this episode. Mm-hmm. Like, I feel like you understood the urgency right off the bat with the Raiders also. They made it even more relevant. Like, I do think this show does a really good job of managing how fast it's going to go and when it's going to, like, hit the brakes and hit the gas. And, like, I think they do pacing really well, which for a show that's telling so many stories in one episode is, like, it's not an easy thing to do. And I just really like how they weave them together.
I totally agree.
That said, TKO.
I was going to say, I really liked Signs Importance. I didn't love TK. I didn't love 50% of TKO, which are specifically the fighting portions of TKO. Every time that was happening, I was like, I'm disengaged.
Why? Okay, let me do the overview first.
Okay.
The overview for this episode from The Lurker's Guide to Babylon 5 reads, an old friend of Garibaldi's arrives and tries to take part in a dangerous alien combat sport. A rabbi helps Ivanova come to terms with her father's death. Why was there an MMA fight in the middle of this episode? Why was it half of this episode? I'm going to say this right off the bat. This was the biggest waste of an episode I have ever seen almost in any series, with the this half of it. None of this ever comes back. We never hear about the Mutai again. We never meet any of these aliens again. We never see Walker Smith again. We never even hear about him again. We don't get updates on his career progressions.
No, it is
absolutely the token episode. It's the token episode. We have
a black friend. We have an Asian fusion insert something of what the Mutai is.
They even talk like Mako.
Well, so the guy who runs it is a Korean American actor who actually has if I'm not mistaken, he's a huge pioneer in Pan-Asian, just bringing up Pan-Asians through like the 60s.
Oh, that's cool.
Oh God, I looked up his name and now I can't remember.
Is it Sunteko? Sunteko?
I think so, yeah.
I apologize for my inability to say Korean names. None of these characters ever come back. We never hear about any of these characters again. This episode does nothing at all for the progression of Garibaldi as a person or for the progression of the show's plot as a whole. I'm not I love filler episodes, but I like them to have a point.
Right.
If that makes any sense.
Or bare minimum, a filler episode should be fun.
Yes.
And this wasn't fun.
This was the most 90s
even a beach episode.
This was the most 90s thing.
Yeah, it was the token episode. There was a lot of there's an interesting thing that I think it did by accident. I don't know if I can give the showrunners credit for this because I'm sure I'm probably just thinking about it too hard. But the thing that I did enjoy, well, okay, so for listeners who maybe haven't seen the episode in a while or don't quite remember, the Mutai is this meant to be this sort of alien bloodbath fighting ring. It is extremely Asian coded. The whole thing of it is Asian coded.
Very much
it's like
so.
something out of judo or karate or like just it's there. And there's a lot of like, you know, I think Danielle, this speaks to like, oh, remember when in the that stretch of 90s where it was like everything Asian.
Yes.
And I feel like this is Babylon's 5's, like, we're just going to do one episode, everything Asian. The thing I think it did by accident was showing that intersectionality is sometimes difficult. Because you can have, by the way, I think I mentioned this off the pod while we were, like, waiting to record, but it, like, Walker Smith is, like, steps right out of the 1980s of just, like, you know, he's a black man. He has so many idioms that he says that I'm just like, well, that sounds like somebody who I would have seen on television in the 1980s. I'm just like, oh boy. The thing I found interesting is like, oh, and he's a boxer. Okay, well, he is a boxer, and that makes sense. Sorry, yes.
His name, the name of the character Walker Smith, was the legal name of boxer Sugar Ray Robinson.
That I caught.
I didn't. I had to look that
up. Which I really liked that. I loved the nod. And that's what I mean. It's like you bring in this black man who's meant to represent, you know, a minority who, like, this is their only, you know, sometimes this is their only avenue. Like, you have to go into, like, something like a blood sport to get notice and recognition. And this is all you know. And I found that interesting. And then I thought it was very interesting that he was extremely rude and dismissive of this obviously extremely culturally relevant thing that he was trying to break into and had to learn about it. And it's like, it's not that you don't have skill. It's that you're rude. Like, you came at it, calling, I think he calls the guy E.T., like he calls the Mutado E.T.
I trust you. I don't remember that happening, but that's again because I was paying very little attention to the fight scenes.
No,
I'm gonna be honest.
No, that's fair. No. He literally walks into what is essentially a dojo and literally walks up to the dude who he doesn't know runs the place.
Yeah.
And it's just like, so what up, E.T.? I'm looking for the guy in charge. And he's like, could you leave? Maybe? And even Garibaldi is like, bro, no, not the time. What are you doing? No. And like but Garibaldi has this moment of like, I had to watch you fall on your face because this is exactly what I was trying to warn you about. Like, you're not supposed to be here. This is not for you. This is not for us. And it's just like, or maybe you could like understand the thing that you were trying to break into in the first place a little bit, you know? And eventually he gets a mentor and he figures it out and he does fight with honor. And it's like, again, it's not about your skill. It's about, you know, understanding and respect. And that is the thing I liked about that quote unquote A plot.
Quote unquote A
yes.
plot.
Also, just to draw parallels, because I do think they're very, the creators of the show try to be very, what's the word? I don't know, keep things relevant. They try to keep the alternate plot lines that they have going on consistent. And I do think there's an element of Walker's story that matches up with Ivanova. And it's, you know, like this, like, constantly needing to prove yourself aspect. And this, like, you know, you need to step into a space and you need to constantly be like, no, I deserve to be here. I deserve to be here. No matter what anybody else says. This is where I belong. And it's like, you know, yeah, it's stretching it a little bit, but I definitely think they were like, they had their breakthroughs at the same time and they interchanged the scenes. So I'm like, okay, well, this was intentional. I've seen other boxing episodes. where the B plot is like, the B plot is the boxing, by the way, in other boxing episodes, which is what makes them good. They're like, by the way, did you sign up to box? And then meanwhile, we're like paying attention to the two that are in love over here in the corner,
right?
You know,
I just didn't feel like, I definitely think you've hit the nail on the head. I think that is what they were intending. I find it interesting that in the notes on the Lurker's Guide, which were all of the notes on the Lurker's Guide, the JMS Speaks section, these were all pulled from like Usenet back in the day when
Sure.
Straczynski would actually get online and talk to fans about the episodes in the days where you could do that without getting mobbed by 6 million people.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
But he said he doesn't talk about the boxing half of the episode. And he even says that the importance of TKO is its relevance to Ivanova's story arc. And I just, with regard to what you're saying about how, you know, the stories intersected with this two different people needing to prove themselves, I think the difference for me is that Walker didn't deserve to be there. He shoved his way in where he had not been invited. And like he did definitely prove that he was worthy of competition, and yes, he opened the way for other humans to join the Muay. But woof, the way he did it. Whereas you have
cost?
At what cost? And whereas you have Ivanova, who all she wanted was her dad to show her some love.
True. I mean, I do also think the other metaphor that I didn't really talk about because it kind of hits you over the head with it is the ignoring of the cultural aspect, which they do also share. Like Walker is not interested in the cultural aspect at first. And then he's like, oh, okay, now I understand the rules of where I am. And Ivanova is like, oh, I understand I'm supposed to be doing these things, but I kind of don't want to deal with my feelings. That'd be great. Could I like skip that?
Like, just not going to talk about the feelings are not present. The feelings have left the room and are not coming back. Please don't make me confront.
Walls up.
Don't make me confront. I have some issues with. I love this. I love Ivanova's story. We are definitely not going to be finished by 9:45. I love Ivanova's story in this episode because it is.
I'm keeping an eye.
You know, there's a rabbi who comes to the station from Russia, from her home. This was her family's rabbi. She grew up knowing this man as her uncle. What was it, Uncle Yossel?
Something like that. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, and
something like that.
He's come to bring her what he calls her legacy, her inheritance from her father, and he wants her to sit Shiva. She wants her to have this ceremony of remembrance and mourning for her father's passing, and she just does not want to do it. And they're coming at it from two different perspectives. He's saying that you need to do this for your own sake. And she's saying, I don't want to. I don't want to do this because I don't want to do this because this is a mark of respect and love towards my father, who never gave me those things when he was alive. My problem is not necessarily where the episode ended up, because from an emotional standpoint, yes, eventually that was something she needed to do. I just desperately wish that she had been allowed to come to it on her own instead of being push towards it.
By the rabbi, and by the rabbi going over her head and going to Sinclair, you mean?
Yes.
Yeah.
Because Sinclair was unaware that her father had passed away at all.
Mm-hmm.
And it was just, this is actually something that kind of keeps happening, is that people going over Ivanova's head about things as they pertain to her as an individual. This is something that's going to come up again.
Okay.
That's interesting.
All right, I'll keep an eye out for it.
And it's not necessarily even something that gets addressed. It's just something that keeps popping up in the scripts.
Yeah, no, it wouldn't be addressed because the 90s wouldn't address it.
No, of course they wouldn't.
Absolutely not.
I will say, I enjoyed the rabbi character very much.
Yeah, no, he was solid. He was like every single rabbi I've ever met in my entire life.
I especially liked when Ivanova takes him out to dinner, and she feeds him fish from Centauri Prime.
Yes.
And he asks her if it's kosher. And I need to read you this bit from the notes in the Lurker's Guide. At one point, there was a discussion in the scene about the whole gills, scales, fins issue to define kosher, but it really brought the scene to a screaming standstill, and we needed to concentrate on the relationships at that moment. In addition, as we looked at it, you would have to get into the question of how alien gills, scales, fins compare to the earthly gills, scales, fins, because they're going to be very different in many ways. In short order, it became a massive Talmudic discussion, and we only have an hour for the show.
Yeah, I can 100% believe that there would have been just an episode of them eating.
Yes. And discussing whether or not Triel is kosher. Yes.
Discussing kosher alien
food.
I
love eating episodes. Like, what if we just replaced all of the MMA minutes of this episode with that? You know, I'm very okay with that.
This brings up something. Before we move on, this brings up... Rosemary made this comment last weekend? Recently, she said, all I want, and I know I'm not going to get this, all I want is a dinner party episode.
Yes!
I want an episode where all of the ambassadors have to be at a fancy dinner. And they all have to deal, because the Minbari are vegetarian, the Narns are obligate carnivores, and the Centauri live on wine. Apparently.
It'll be
just
like that.
wine.
It'll be like that episode where everyone had to engage in everyone else's religious observances, except that it'll be everyone has to eat everyone else's food.
And it'll be all the
Garibaldi
food all the time.
will bring his burger, I guess. With his like
There are one or two other really lovely little food bits as we go out through the series. One of them involves Jakar again.
Oh, brilliant. Wait,
yes.
So the Narn are obligate carnivores. I don't think I picked up on that.
I mean, the meal that he cooked for himself consisted of what looked like a pig's head and some prawns.
Yes,
There's some live prawns.
They're reptiles. they are not going to be eating. You know, maybe they eat some greens to freshen their breath.
They're looking for water and they're looking for meat, and that's it.
Yes, and a nice warm rock. Jakar's bed is literally a slab of rock with some pillows. Yeah.
I have another piece of this episode, but I think I want to save it for my one more thing.
Okay.
All right. What the hell's next? Oh, the Grail.
The Grail.
Grail.
Oh, lordy lord, the Grail.
Exactly.
All right. So, before we get started, Grail, according to the Lurker's Guide to Babylon 5, the overview for this is: a traveler comes to Babylon 5 seeking the Holy Grail. Yes, really. A series of unexplained attacks on several lurkers may be linked to Ambassador Kosh. I have trouble with this episode because the premise of it is just so ludicrous to me.
Ridiculous.
But I gotta tell you, I do love the opening where you have Delenn and Lanier coming up to Sinclair as he's sitting down to eat and going like, "Why aren't you ready? We have this distinguished guest arriving. You really, of course, you'll be there in full, dress uniform." And they're both very, very uptight. And so, Sinclair and Garibaldi get their dress uniforms on. They go down to customs, and the man they are there to meet is basically, I don't know how to describe him, a wandering scholar conspiracy nut literally looking for the Holy Grail.
Well,
Monk. Don't forget monk.
Is he a monk?
I mean, he fights like a monk.
He definitely fights like a monk, staff
In that
included.
so he fights like Friar Tuck, is what you're saying.
Yes.
Exactly,
Okay.
yeah. Yes. He has a staff and he knows how to use it.
You know what he
Is
is? He's a true seeker.
Yes. Which I
No,
do.
Which makes sense for Delenn and Lanier.
100%.
That they would, yeah.
And Lanier is he gets a little hitch in his giddy up there. When,
Yeah, he
when
gets a real senpai notice me.
Yes!
And I was
that's
just like,
so
you are
perfect.
so cute.
You're
My
so
notes
precious!
say, Lanier is enthralled.
Yep. He's so precious. He's precious in these early episodes. I have trouble with this episode.
I know.
And-
listen,
and it's
the
like, I
premise
want
is
to-
silly, but the
Premise is so
twist
silly.
is fun.
Yes. I mean,
The twist
the,
with Ambassador Kosh, I mean, specifically.
the twist about it not being Ambassador
Ambassador
Kosh,
Kosh, exactly.
not causing the
not Kosh.
not Kosh, yeah. Things I like about this episode: the fact that David Warner is in it.
Sure.
I
I love that William Sanderson is in this.
Yep. Who is he? He's the judge.
No, he's that Southern guy. He's
Oh,
Deuce.
he's Deuce. Oh
He's
my god.
he is so William Sanderson. I don't know if he planned this, but he reminds me of just like being that modern like cowboy everyman, where like that's just who he's going to play now for the rest of his life. He was in Deadwood. He was also in American Gods. I believe he played the god of money. He's a character actor who's literally just like, I could be a black hat if you want me to be. I could be the squirrely mare, but I definitely come from the Old West. He 100% comes from the Old West in everything.
It's 2258.
a
It's 2258.
cowboy.
It's 2258, and he is from the Old West.
And he's a cowboy.
Yep.
But like, look at that range. Sometimes a black hat,
I know.
sometimes a white hat, sometimes a sheriff. Like, come on.
Sometimes a preacher.
Sometimes a
He's
preacher.
got it. I don't know. There's something about someone who has understood the niche that he is going to be in now for the rest of his life. And I'm like, I'm glad you embrace it.
Yeah.
Living the dream. Other things I like.
But yes, I did also like the judge. I didn't actually look up his name though, but I've seen him before.
I've seen him in many things, and I did look him up when I was watching the episode, but I've forgotten all the things I looked up.
No problem.
But that was the other thing I really like is the scene at the beginning with the civil trial. Because number one, we get to see some of the civil aspects of Babylon 5 governance. So we have this what is he called, an ombudsman?
Yes.
Which is a legal term that I once again looked up and don't remember. So we'll fix this in post, I suppose.
I might be able to look that up while you keep talking.
Okay.
Go ahead.
But this is a civil trial of a human who is played by the show's producer, by the way, Douglas Netter. This human is rambling on and on about how his great-grandfather was abducted by aliens, and the great-grandson of the alien who abducted his grandfather and did experiments on him, like Roswell style, is in court with them. And you look and you see this, it's a puppet, but you see it's a gray alien. It's a stereotypical gray alien. But then he holds up like a cue card with a weird like crop circle looking glyph on it because he can't speak English. And the judge is just like,
Can we get a translator in here?
we need a translator. And as somebody who works with translations, my God, I feel that in my soul.
Yeah, no, I definitely wrote that down as the abduction trial. I also really liked the like sitcom aspect of the ombudsman, where it's just like, I bet the other ombudsmen don't have to deal with this. Why do I get all these cases?
They get normal cases like petty theft and
Petty theft.
public insults. And then the the reason that this episode is actually required is because we finally find out what happened to the other Babylon stations.
Well, what happened?
Yeah, quotes on we find out, right?
We know how they disintegrated.
Yes, true.
But we don't know why.
We have Jinxo, as the
Yes.
poor fellow is named. I have questions about how people in the 23rd century get nicknames. He's called that because he is a jinx.
Yes.
He worked on every single Babylon station during construction. The first 3 Babylon stations were destroyed. We don't know how. It's implied to have just been sabotage or possibly operator error, or a solar flare or something unavoidable.
Yeah, I'm also just like, guys, it's space.
It's space.
We don't know. There's
Things
stuff.
blow up.
Space
There's
is always
stuff.
trying to
Happens.
kill you.
It's like Australia, exactly. And then Babylon 4 just went poof in the middle of the night. Just 24 hours after going online, just vanished into thin lack of air.
Insane.
So this is why I said like quotes on now we know, right? Like of course all 4 stations were destroyed somehow, but Jinxo is convinced that Jinxo is convinced that it's him and he has caused all of this.
So he has stayed on Babylon 5 from like the time that the first deck plates were laid to now. He was refusing to leave because if he leaves, he genuinely believes that the station will be destroyed. And
I don't know. I like the monk's take.
Which was? I didn't watch.
Maybe you're lucky.
Because you leave and then the station gets destroyed.
Yes.
Because you happen to be in the right place at the right time and wherever you're needed. And then maybe you're just lucky. And I was like, oh no, you've completely destroyed this person's entire brain chemistry. It's gone.
Meanwhile,
by the way,
button on the end of the
Ombudsman.
episode.
Yeah, no, I know. Ombudsman is an official appointed to investigate individual complaints against maladministration, usually government official. But like they're usually public authority. Like they're usually sent to look over public authority stuff. So I guess by 22, whatever, like we're throwing ombudsmen everywhere.
I have to. So, as regards the stations, no, it was not Jinxo's fault, and he left Babylon 5 after Mr. Monk looking for the Holy Grail got deaded. Can you tell I watched this episode in depth?
In depth.
But in broad outline, what happened to the other 4 Babylon stations is actually canon. That's correct. The first 3 were destroyed, and the 4th one is MIA.
Yeah. Oh no! I 100% believe that the facts of his thought process are correct. I think his feelings were incorrect.
I think that man is a little traumatized.
His understanding of causation versus correlation.
Well, it's like that. Okay. Jinxo is the 23rd century version of that nurse who survived the Titanic, the Olympic, and the Gigantic.
Yeah.
What was it? Her name was Violet Jessup. She was unkillable. I also think she got blown up on the Lusitania. She died of old age.
What was I going to say? No, the abduction trial is one of my favorite possible things that has happened this entire show. I did find it interesting that he shows up on the station. He didn't even bother telling the commander because it's not a human matter. However, he's looking for what is arguably an extremely human religious artifact. So I was like, why? Well, that's just bad search. That's just bad searching. Wouldn't you try to, ask everyone you possibly could?
But why would you ask everyone you possibly could when you can just ask Veer?
Efficiency. The man is efficient, and I love him. Meanwhile, poor Londo is
Efficient.
just like, I could have made so much money. And I'm like, could you have? Could you have?
Maybe I do need to rewatch that episode properly. I didn't realize.
Oh my God,
Veer's
Londo is trying to milk so much money out of him, and Veer's like, I went ahead and took care of it. And Londo was like, what?
I called
Veer.
all the data.
Veer.
I found all of these potential artifacts that could maybe be the cup you're looking for. Here's a data crystal. You could have it for free.
Yeah. I took a look at it, but you're more than welcome to take a look. Veer! But wanted to be efficient. Yes. So funny. So good.
I wish I could say this was the only King Arthur related episode that comes up.
Oh boy.
Well,
There's
They
another.
did kind of have a King Arthur renaissance in science fiction at the time.
Yes. Well, do you remember I said when talking about this last week, I said that this was the episode with Michael York?
Yes.
No, that's the other one.
Did you? Yeah, the other one. The other one is another King Arthur.
The other one, which is very impressive considering Michael York's more famous roles. I think that was done deliberately.
I love that. I love, but I mean, also, I do think it's really easy to confuse the two of them. Not that they look alike, but it's more like they play the same people.
Extremely
Case in
similar
point.
roles. They
Case in
yeah.
point.
It's like how Michael Sheen and David Tennant were never in the same show until Good Omens because they were
Yeah.
always up for the same roles.
Yeah, they were always up for the same role.
You would only have one Michael Sheen or David Tennant shaped hole in a script.
Yes, absolutely. At some point, it veered off, but it took a very long time to veer off. I did appreciate that we sent the atheist along with the man who was searching for the Holy Grail. Garibaldi's an atheist, right? Is he not?
More or less.
Okay.
I don't think he gets into it too much. I want to say he's Italian. He's probably originally like raised Catholic. He makes a couple of jokes about the Pope in later episodes.
Sure.
No, that's what I thought. I
but,
thought he was like raised Catholic, but he has zero interest.
Yeah, no, he's not.
Doesn't he say something like "You're God"? And I was like, "Oh, so you're not?"
Yeah, no. I'm claiming him as a lapsed Catholic for the people. I'm claiming him for the people as a lapsed
It all
Catholic.
tracks. Yeah.
Yep. I think like in the mix somewhere, I think he's Irish Catholic because he talks about his grandmother having been a Boston cop, and I think that's the implication there.
So he's grandfathered in, is he?
Yeah.
Why did I write down? Sorry guys, I wrote down a note, and I want to check it real quick before I
Oh, okay.
talk about it.
I was like, let's play a fun game. You read the note. I'll see if I can decipher it.
Yeah, I wanted to do the same.
There is a part of me that's like, look, if I can't figure it out, I will 100% give it to y'all to figure out. And I was like, no. I feel like I had a point. Nope. Because his freaking character name isn't there. Why did I write down Bold of Desmond?
Old? Like versus...
Bold.
Oh, bold. Bold of Desmond.
Yeah.
I have no
Why did I
idea.
write that down?
But
Desmond?
that's probably because I'm very bad at character names.
There's no one.
Right?
I can't even think of what Desmond you might mean.
Because there is no Desmond in this episode.
No,
Are we sure?
Pretty sure.
it's a Deuce. Hang on, let me hold, please.
I feel like maybe it's one of the goons. I mean, again, with the white guy blindness.
Hang on, I'm checking IMDb.
Yeah, no, same. That's where I went to first. But I was like, well, he's not one of the main characters. It also kind of doesn't help that I appreciate that they list all the people yeah, no.
There's nobody in this episode named. I mean, they might have shouted at somebody, but
Could have sworn there was something. I'll rewatch it and see if I can figure it out. But there was definitely a moment where like someone stepped to an alien, and I was like, oh, good luck with that. It definitely wasn't Deuce, because Deuce, as far as I could tell, was kind of swimming in fine for a very long time. Deuce was like untouchable.
Yeah, essentially.
For so much of that episode. And I was like, oh no, wait, he's in charge. I hate that. That's fine. Doesn't matter.
Okay. I don't know if this is true. I'm sorry. I'm looking at the notes.
Yeah, sure.
Do you remember the show Sightings? It was like Unsolved Mysteries-esque kind of show in the mid-90s, but it was solely about aliens and like UFOs and alien abductions.
I mean, I probably do. I probably watched it.
According to Straczynski, the trial scene was excerpted for a 2-part Sightings episode on alien abduction, and he died laughing.
I mean, I would 100%. If I was that, I would 100% have done that too and been like, it's got to be longer. This is like finding out that Death Becomes Her was actually supposed to be a Tales from the Crypt episode, but they just took the idea and ran with it. It's like, as soon as I found that out, I was like, that makes perfect sense, because it's 100% the exact same vibe as Tales from the Crypt.
I understand that movie now.
Yeah.
I've been trying to understand that movie for like 15 years.
You're welcome.
Like, is it just me or no? Okay, it's a Tales from the Crypt episode.
It's basically a Tales from the Crypt episode,
yep.
Because the guy who wrote Death Becomes Her was a guest writer on Tales from the Crypt, and apparently he had this idea, and then he just like kept expanding it and expanding it, and it was too long for the show.
And then he had a whole movie on his hands.
Yeah, I mean that's the tea. I don't actually know if that's true, but that's Desmond Mashenko.
That's a name.
That's apparently a name in this episode.
Okay.
Interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's in the full transcript of the episode.
Where did you find transcripts?
Apparently, a website called Subs Like Script.
Okay.
Google brought me there.
I will have to go look for that.
Interesting.
Are we done? Are we just about wrapped?
One more thing.
Yeah. Yes, one more thing.
Does everyone have their one more thing? I already know mine.
I have
Mine's going to be fast.
I have one.
Okay.
I find it very lovely and also very perverse that when Jinxo finally leaves Babylon 5 after having survived 5 cursed stations, he leaves on a ship named the Mary Celeste.
Oh, I didn't notice
like
that.
Yeah.
What a fun detail.
Oh, that's nice.
And the Mary Celeste is the most famous ghost ship in maritime lore, which nobody knows what happened to the crew, and the ship itself was found adrift mysteriously, and it spawned a lot of very weird stories. But we never hear from Thomas. We never hear about Jinxo again, so make of that what you will.
I mean,
I really liked his character.
He was very sweet.
But they wrapped it up with a nice little bow, but I really enjoyed watching him.
I keep saying that, though. I keep saying it like every other episode. No, we never hear from them again. We never hear about them again.
Well, that's why I had to ask about the Magical Mystery Man, because I was like, is this another one of those characters? Because
so
there
glad
are so
to hear
many
the answer is no.
Yeah, I'm very happy to hear that Magical Mystery Man is coming back.
Mr. Molden.
Deuce and Desmond are the same person.
Oh, it's his real name. Okay.
It's his real name.
Okay.
And the reason I wrote that is because I was surprised when he got up and talked smack right to Jinxo's face in the courtroom in front of the judge. And I was just like, bold of you, sir.
Man named Desmond.
And meanwhile, the judge doesn't say anything, and I'm just like, oh my God. But the judge does say his name, which is why I wrote down Desmond.
Makes perfect sense. All right, what's my one more thing? Is it just an Ivanova quote?
Are you still looking for yours?
Is it just the Ivanova quote? Is it the Ivanova quote that opened the episode?
Quote, because I was going to say,
is it about sleep?
If we hadn't circled back to Veer being efficient, that would have been my one more thing, because I loved that.
Fair.
Oh, another fun Veer moment. Fun? Not fun? I don't know. His relationship with Londo. Orlando at the end of the episode tricks him and traps him outside of the room. I'm like, oh, Veer.
Oh, yes.
This
I know.
poor beaten down character. Is he ever going to catch a break?
He's like Bob Cratchit.
He's a little bit Bob Cratchit.
Okay, but you know what? The Ivanova quote is, it's less about the quote itself, and it's about the level of tired that Ivanova is. And I was like, this is a level of tired that I understand deeply. And of course, it's 5 minutes into Sign's importance. When Ivanova wakes up, she's really tired. Sinclair says to her, like, why are you so tired? And she's like, I just find it really hard to wake up when it's dark out. Sinclair goes, but it's always dark in space. And Ivana says, I know. I know. And that tone right there, I felt it.
Felt it deep in your bones.
I also liked her line when she first woke up, where she's very groggy and just grumbling and like, and she says, why does my mouth always taste like old carpet when I wake up? And the computer answers her and says, I don't know. Would you like me to look that up?
I do like how helpful her computer is. That's not my one more thing, but I guess it's an adjacent one more thing. I like that her personal computer is very helpful. Her personal computer just wants to help. My one more thing is, how on earth did the commander get enough time away to dedicate to helping Ivanova sit Shiva? How on earth? This is a man who has every single moment of his day. He never gets a break. He barely sleeps. He has to go on the observation deck just to get 10 minutes of quiet. He was able to sit Shiva. I don't know how it happened.
For Ivanova,
he was something
anything.
like working doubles, and I was like, "Did you, sir? Did you?"
And she throws it back in his face at the end. And he's like, "Yes, I'm glad you're back on duty. I'm tired of working double shifts." And Ivanova says, "I'm gonna have to remember that the next time your girlfriend's on the station."
Yeah, which I really enjoyed that as well.
Also, side note, this upsets me. All of the people who are in Ivanova's quarters while she is sitting Shiva for her father, presumably those are also members of the Jewish community on the station. We never learn any of their names. We never see any of them again. She never has any. We don't know if they are just random Jewish people that she plucked out of the station's address book. We don't know. Is she friends with any of them? We don't know.
I want to be very clear. When I said this episode was the minority episode, I wasn't only talking about the Asians and the black guy.
Yeah.
I was also talking about the Jews in this episode, the nameless Jews. There's like 15 Jews in that room. Because she only singles out the commander, who we assume does not know Hebrew.
Yeah.
Because
it's just like, I guess everyone else here does. I don't know. It was weird. It was weird vibes. Weird vibes.
And that's what we end the episode on, is the weird vibes.
I feel like I hear the network. You get one.
You get what?
You got to squeeze all them into one episode.
But you know what? I know that this is bad. But the fact that they squeezed all of those groups into one episode means that we only had to sit through 50 minutes of this once, right?
I mean, only Ethan can answer that question.
Ethan, tell us, is there more?
You have to say.
The thing is, I skip over the tokenism episodes, because they're painful. But to the best of my recollection, this is the only one.
Okay.
Largely because Ivanova is Jewish, but she thinks of herself as a Russian first.
Yeah.
So we get more of her.
Many Russian Jews do.
Yes. So we get a lot more episodes about her being Russian than we do about her being Jewish.
I really loved having...
She drinks a lot of vodka.
She drinks a lot of vodka. I just really love that, like, also the rabbi was also very Russian.
Yes.
Like, very Russian, but in a very different way.
Yes.
And I don't know. Like, especially, like, the very last moments of episode 15 where we just get Ivanova, there's always a boom.
Always a boom.
And I was like, that is 100% just... I guarantee you that is just her Russian.
Yes.
Like, it's just her Russian showing.
No boom today, boom tomorrow.
No boom today, boom tomorrow.
I have quoted that to myself when crap is hitting the fan at work.
Sure, yeah.
No boom
No
today.
boom today, boom tomorrow.
Boom tomorrow.
Boom tomorrow. Always a boom tomorrow.
Absolutely.
That's
I
amazing.
think we did it.
I think we did it.
We did. That's a good episode ender. Ethan, why don't you tell us where to find you?
I am Ethan Quinsey on Patreon and Blue Sky, and Gaslight Gallows on Tumblr if you're that kind of nerd.
And if you're looking for Binge O'Clock Pod, we would love to hear from you. Please check us out at Binge O'Clock Pod on Twitter and Facebook, where you can answer the question, what is your favorite burger topping or condiment? You can also email us at bingeoclockpod@gmail.com. And don't forget, we have a Patreon. Find us at patreon.com/BachPod.
That's right. Tell your friends, tell your family, tell your loved ones, tell the live lobsters in your life about Binge O'Clock, and we will see you next time.